Yeah.
Really spot on. Cool. So
Cool.
thanks,
All right.
Sean, for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's dig into this. So I just titled it, I don't know, I came up with this title, Gameover, How to Pre-Validate Game Demand and Launch to a Group of Rabid Fans on Day 1. So I guess the purpose of this talk here is really to avoid this. And the analogy is you can be the greatest chef in the world and make, you know, an amazing restaurant, and like fantastic cuisine and just beautiful decor, but then have nobody show up. And to me, it's like the analogy here is you guys who are working on games and stuff, you can make the most brilliant, you know, addictive, awesome gameplay in the world, but if you don't have people show up to use it, then it's kind of like, unless you're doing it just for the hobby and for the heck of it, it kind of undermines your ability to make a living at it. So I want to give you guys some of what I consider to be more like cutting edge, recent methodologies and tools for actually fixing the marketing side of this. And I mean, you'll be particularly interested in this because it's all about the sales and marketing. So I don't know if this one came out, but basically I feel like a lot of game developers, you realize how crowded this industry is. Like you couldn't choose really a more bloody, I don't know if anyone's read the Blue Ocean strategy, but like this is not a blue ocean that you're getting into in game development. It's arguably one of the more bloody oceans that you can compete in. And so I don't want you guys to bring a knife to a gunfight or a fencing sword to a gunfight, as it may be. So hope, like, if anything comes out of this, I hope you'll take Steve Blank's free online course, which explains a lot of the customer development and business model canvas stuff. And so we'll get into some of that. But my goal isn't to, like, obviously we can't cover tonight all the intricacies of how this stuff works, but I can give you kind of like a mental index of what there is out there so you're at least aware of it and you'll be able to start thinking about this stuff. Okay, so this talk is essentially going to be broken into 2 parts, and we can stay as long as you guys want to, but probably it won't take more than, I don't know, an hour, a little over an hour to get through everything. But this is basically the core of it. So this first half of the talk, we're going to focus on this side of the equation, which is product market fit is kind of like this demarcation point in the middle in any stage of any venture. Like, so we're talking about game development, but this applies, I mean, this is generic, right? It's any startup type venture, whether it's a for-profit, non-profit, whatever. So we're on this side of it. We're going to focus on what do you do before you've really nailed the product and nailed the product market fit, which is how well does what you've created mesh with what people want in the market. Once we talk about that, then we'll shift over here. We'll take a little break, and then we'll shift to talking about, okay, now you've nailed it, you've made the perfect game, and now how do we market that game and focus on growth. So first off, just so you know who's talking right now and why you should even listen to me at all, these are some of the companies that I've worked for in the past. I've been at a bunch of startups. This was like the first real big ISP in Phoenix. I started there when I was still in college. Graduated, went to work for the newspaper here. I was in their online department, handled their automotive section, did a startup. I was employee number 5 at this one, and it grew to 40 and then tanked. Went to another startup that was a model scouting agency, another startup focused on wireless payments. Worked for Pat Sullivan's company, SalesLogix, before it got acquired by Sage. Did a stint as a 3D animator. So I was a programmer at all of these, like 8 years of cold fusion development. Went and learned 3D animation, and then in this one I did the animations that they use in jury trials where they're trying to convince the jury of something. Worked as a programmer for this company, Interactive Sites, and then this marks when I went off on my own, and I did a party bus business, which is where I met Brian. Started a consultancy where I was developing cold fusion custom applications. Did a music startup that didn't work out. Founded this company, which is still around today, and arguably it's profitable. It's a modest success. This one we made some money out. It was a real estate play, and then this is kind of my current big focus. It's the next thing that I'm doing. It involves sales and marketing automation and helping people use that stuff. So kind of a diverse past. And I've been exposed to a lot of different business models, a lot of different situations, and hopefully some of the stuff that I can relate to you is going to be useful. So, all right, so digging into this, in my opinion, when you guys are developing something new, okay, well, first off, so for the purposes of this talk, we're going to consider game development. It's basically like you guys are building a startup. And the definition, like a very useful definition of a startup, is this guy Steve Blank calls it a temporary organization operating under conditions of extreme uncertainty in search of a repeatable, scalable business model. So 3 components: temporary organization, conditions of extreme uncertainty, and searching for a repeatable, scalable business model. So that applies in this situation to get you what you're doing, where you're basically building a game. There's a lot of uncertainty. You don't know how people are going to like it or what's possible and all that. And so a lot of the same physics apply that they do to startups. And maybe you have an actual startup. I don't know. Does anyone here actually like funded or trying to make a go at it? Like with what you're doing, you are? Okay, cool. So in my opinion, like in startups, a good deal of the time, you're not competing against like even the competitors when you start. You're competing against apathy. Like for people, are they even going to care what you're doing? Like you should be so lucky as to have the other problems once you have a user base and have people that care about you. So early on, this is our greatest challenge, and how we deal with that is through the things that I'm going to show you. So there's 3 things. This forms the basis on that pre-product market fit side. These are the 3 basically tools that you have to work with now. And these are all, what's cool is like entrepreneurship used to be kind of a black art, and not many people, it was kind of like some people were good at it, but it was, ooh, what are they doing? And it's kind of a mystery. Things have emerged now for doing it like in a more systematic fashion. And so real quick, what we call cust dev or customer development, think of it like the survival skills. It's almost like if you're in the wild and you're trying to get to resources before you run out of talent and money and time and all that in a startup, then customer development is like your ability to interface with would-be customers and extract useful information and figuring out what their needs are, what the true problem is, how your solution meshes with all that. That's kind of, that skill is basically customer development. You can think of the lean stuff that we're going to go through as almost like your compass, that how you constantly align yourself to true north and know if you're on the right track in what you're doing. And so this is, we'll go through it in more depth, but really just think of it like a compass that you're able to use constantly to check your assumptions against reality. And then this would be the business model canvas, what I have up on the wall here. Think of this almost like your map. It's how you chart your progress along this path, and it's an iterative thing. You get these assumptions, these hypotheses, and you go test them, and then you use this canvas to track how your understanding of the business is changing over time. So those are the 3 tools that you use. Okay, so starting with customer development, what is it? Does anybody know Steve Blank? Phil, I know you do. Yeah, cool, awesome. All right, so some people know about him. This guy is like, he's the man. He's the godfather of this stuff. He does a free course online. If you Google Steve Blank Udacity, and by the way, these slides are going to be, I'll make them available, and they link to it. Actually, the slide coming up has a link to his course. But take that course. It's a free thing. If you do nothing else from today, I strongly encourage you to look at that because it's awesome. But basically, he wrote this book, 4 Steps to the Epiphany, about 10 years ago. It was he had gone through numerous startups and saw the patterns and tried to distill what he saw was working and turned it into like this whole framework of these 4 steps that you saw at the beginning with customer discovery, customer validation, company building, and one other, I forget. But that system in that book is horribly written, but it's awesome content. And he has since, 10 years later, updated it. He wrote this, which is basically like the sequel to that book, the Startup Owner's Manual, and then published that online Udacity course. And he now teaches something called the Lean Launchpad, where he's educating people to go off and then train others in how to do this stuff. So fundamental tenets of it: answers don't exist within the walls of the building, so get out of the building. I mean, at the heart of all that he teaches, it's basically, it's stupid. These people that tell you to go write a 50-page business plan and then just it'll work. It's just, that's not how it's done anymore. You come up with a workable hypothesis and then go test it by interfacing with potential customers. Focus on the problem before you jump to pushing your solution. Like, I think a lot of times we get just anchored to this idea that we know what the right thing is, and really your first iteration of the solution is only ever your first attempt, and you're almost certainly going to have it completely revised as soon as you, what he says is no business plan survives first contact with the customer, basically. And so it's always going to change once you get it out there. And then just customer development is this framework for doing entrepreneurship systematically. It's how you dial in on product market fit and then go to focusing on growth. And as you go through these things, those four stages, or the 4 steps of the epiphany, you almost think of them like orbits. So you're in the gravitational pull of that orbit until you achieve enough to escape velocity to move on to the next thing. And if you get deep into this stuff, I would probably read this one just because it's the revised version of it, but that was the first one that came out. So, and this is the slide that links to his talk. He's amazing. I can't possibly do it justice to how well he can explain this stuff. Okay, so lean startup. This is something that evolved from Steve Blank's work. He basically had a protege, this guy Eric Ries, who was like his apprentice, and he was, embraced it, and he kind of applied some of these other concepts of like agile development and continuous deployment and some of these other things, and then wrote a book. And it's almost like the apprentice has since eclipsed the master here in terms of publicity, and so he's gotten famous for it. And in my opinion, Steve Blank is really the godfather of all this stuff. But comes out of the lean manufacturing stuff, basically applied to startups. The idea is that you want to de-risk the most threatening aspects early on. So what we're going to do, and hopefully if someone volunteers, we'll just actually take you through this process. But the idea is to find where the greatest uncertainty and risk it currently exists for your project, and then focus on de-risking it. What is the experiments that we need to conduct to remove that risk from the equation? He talks about the build, measure, learn loop. Brian kind of coined the term. It's really learn, build, measure, because you don't just dive in and build something. Ideally, you want to spend a little bit of time, learn as much as you can, and then start from an informed position, and then start building stuff and doing experiments. Validated learning is the unit of progress, and this whole notion of innovation accounting, which is, think of this almost like a balance sheet of your understanding about certain things in the business. Okay, so when you distill all this stuff down, like if you remember nothing of what was on that last slide, the whole point of all this stuff is not to get fixated on the tactics and the methodology, but to always just put this into your mind. This is all about risk mitigation, taking the uncertainty out of the equation and reducing waste. And waste is in the form typically of spending hours developing something that nobody cares about, right? That's waste. What else could you have been doing this whole time? Playing with your kids, or working on a different project. But how do we eliminate that waste? That's what it's all about. So this is an example I like to use that I think it'll be good to like mentally anchor to this concept. So this is a college campus in California, and I'm just gonna, does anyone recognize it? I don't expect you to, but it would be weird if you did. So this is Cal Poly campus. And this is, I don't know, about 15 years ago, I guess, they were doing construction there. And they're putting up some new buildings. And as a part of that process, they had to put in sidewalks. And they didn't know where to put the sidewalks. They were all like internally arguing. And the administrators thought one thing, and the engineers and architects and everyone, they couldn't basically come to consensus on where the sidewalks between these new buildings belonged. So they have this big debate, and nobody can agree, and it's just like, how are we going to solve this? And then someone had the brilliant idea. They said, guys, let's not build sidewalks yet. We don't know. Let's plant grass. And so that's exactly what they did. This is a close-up here. You can see they planted grass, and they took an aerial photo a year later, and the tread-worn places where in the lawn were the places they empirically told them where the sidewalks needed to be, right? And so that, to me, is like a perfect encapsulation of what lean thinking is. It's like, how do we take the uncertainty out of this and really just let the market speak here and let that drive the decision? Okay. All right, so business model canvas. This is a business model canvas right here. It's basically the report card. It's how you capture your assumptions and iterate and track your progress as you get more validated learning. This is now commonly taught, at least at Stanford, I know, it's a replacement for the business plan. They don't even have them writing business plans anymore. They just do these things here. The CEI incubator locally, when they accept new clients, they make them do one of these. They don't even look at your business plan anymore. So it's a snapshot of current understanding, basically a balance sheet of your understanding of various aspects of the business. And what's really neat about this thing is no one's going to read a 50-page business plan, right? And people get all guarded when they're talking about their startup. Like, I hope you guys don't do that. Like, if you have an idea for a game that you're trying to build, don't keep it a secret. Like, no one's going to steal it. The best thing you can do is to have other eyes on it and have people give you their input. And so this thing is like the one pager that makes it really easy to capture all these aspects and then just is a vessel to show that to someone else and say, hey, what do you think? And it also gives us some really like common vocabulary. As people start to use this, you can very quickly assess someone's business by looking at their canvas. And so it just makes it's shared vocabulary basically. So what I would like to do, who here has a game in progress? You want to volunteer? All right, cool. Let's go through, let's do this. Let's just try this out on your venture here. Okay. So what is the, and can you shift the camera? Yeah. What is the name of your venture?
Calling it Home Deck.
Home Deck.
Yeah.
And what is it? Just give me the elevator pitch.
So it's a 3D interactive customizing tool for custom home development.
Okay.
Basically imagine I'm pitching to contractors, developers who have catalogs of floor plans. Their customers come in, pick a floor plan, and then try to decide on what customizations they want to it without any real visualization tool available. So that's where I step in and provide that visualization tool.
Okay, so the target for it is who then? It's the
Custom home developers, contractors, designers, and architects. So it's not the end user. It would be
okay. So your user is going to be different than your customer, basically. Okay. So who is paying you money for this?
Would be those contractors, the architects, the developers.
Architects, developers. Okay. Does the homeowner or the prospective home buyer consider it or no?
And in my long term, eventually, maybe saying that I would release an end user version.
Okay.
But I have to build up a library of assets first. Before that, that's where having those customers help me build my library before I can release that to the public.
Okay.
Could an interior designer use the software?
Again, yes, but interiors is another. So that's in our second. Like the way I see it is like that's my second phase.
Okay.
Exterior is probably the most easy to execute on. Okay. Interiors is definitely where we want to go, and capitalize, and definitely interior design is where we want to go with that. But I guess like I said proof of concept will be exteriors at first.
Okay. Okay. Okay, awesome. So that's your customer segments that you're going after. State again, just as succinctly as you can, what is the value of this thing to these people?
To those people.
Yeah.
To those people is to increase their revenue by multiplying their turnaround, their customer buy-in. So their customers, they go in, they pick a catalog. They're looking at catalogs from all these other home buyers. Mm-hmm. What's making them buy your home? What's making them purchase a home with you at your community? Well, it's a lot easier if they have something visual, not only that they can touch, but they can also play with and become more attached to. In terms of visualizations, they understand. I know that I used to work with a lot of them, and they understand the points of visualizations because it all there's numbers that show that it definitely increases their turnaround. The problem with custom homes is they can't get visualizations on those, immediately. As soon as you come in, you want to buy a home, I have to go and pay somebody a couple $1,000s to design this and to do a visualization for just what you did. It's not worth it for them.
Okay.
So you're that turnaround,
fast turnaround in terms of these people selling their work. So basically,
So it's faster and more in numbers, like higher quantity turnaround. That turnaround increases their revenue.
Okay. Anything else?
Off the top of my head right now.
You've got a more effective sales process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So lower overhead,
Yeah. You
Better
imagine
closure rate.
higher close rate.
Yeah, we saw that. Like, imagine their sales team is out there with iPads, you know, and like, oh, you like this one? You bring this up, and it's like it's a lot easier to sell that on the spot.
Yep. Okay. Okay. I buy that. And so the problem that you're solving is what? Just protracted close times, like a lot of back and forth manual visits and whatnot.
Yep.
Long sales cycle. I can envision like getting your deal hijacked. Other people are better at keeping contact with the customer, and so there's lost sales maybe. So due to that,
Customers don't have any imagination.
They really don't.
customers. So what's the impact of that though? Why is that a problem?
Because the tools that are currently out there fits in the middle of that. When they don't have imagination, they don't know where to start. They don't know where to go with it.
Okay.
So you give them something to start with, and then lots of options for them to play with. They will play with it forever, and that gives them that buy. That's what
So maybe over here even it's like higher satisfaction with the end product, or like you're more consensus, like you know what you're getting almost. Okay. Cool. And your solution is this 3D like visualization walkthrough type thing?
It's just, so for all game developers, imagine it's a character customizer. You know, you start a game, you create a character, you customize your character from, you know, you have a base model, and then you have, you know, pick its hair, pick its color, pick its eyes, pick its clothing. It's the exact same thing with the floor plan of a building.
Okay. Okay, cool.
And then is it like an on-rails visualization, or is it something you can like step in as like camera or character in?
So that's where we get into the interior, which is why I said interior is going to be a
But it's
different.
mainly just the outside of the.
But it's just the outside. It's just outside. It's on the turntable.
Okay.
And you're able to zoom, rotate, and pick. So pick what item you want to customize and so forth. When we get into the interior, it would be on rails, like a first person moving
So
around.
it's
And that's
something
different.
that you would have to build for each specific house.
Well, that's the cool thing about it is, it would based off their floor plans. It's like it only, like I said, the limitation of this is that it only works if you have
CAD files or something that can
or
generate it.
Yeah, if you've got a set, a catalog, or something that's already to begin with, to start with. So we know that they have a catalog of floor plans. So from those floor plans, we have a base to start from. So from that base, then we'll have to build. And most of them, like the majority of times, all these floor plans, there's only like a few things change. So we can build like 3 or 4 different homes and then change those to create the base models. And then our asset, we build an library of assets of different doors, different windows, different chimneys. An extension is an extension garage doors. These are all those customizations that you have to a home. Those are all small.
So it's like the on-the-fly customizations that would elevate it above just photographs of a contractor's past jobs.
Exactly.
Because I was thinking of like the application of like a real estate agent. But then, with what you're saying is true, then they don't have really CAD files. They don't have.
No, the real estate wouldn't have that. Like I said, thinking about real estate agents, that would probably, if once we release it to a public, that could be something for them that could be a new market to get into once if it's gone out to the public. But
Yeah.
like I said, that's where I need like the would need that library of assets, and that's not going to come until I have a couple of.
Yeah, don't even spend thought cycles if it's and we didn't discuss this, but you guys know the term MVP, minimum viable product. So the goal here is to come up with the most compelling, simplest thing that addresses a very discrete problem that you can solve. And ideally one that has some channels to get to whoever these people are, a well-defined market. And it's like, what's something we can do just to crack into the market? And then you can worry later about how do you expand and get to these guys. But this is irrelevant if we don't do this right. So, all right, well, let's keep going through here. So let's actually talk channels. How do you reach these people?
Right now, through my personal contacts, because I'm from a background in architecture, so I have friends that are contractors, architects, and like I said, previously discussing my idea with them, they've all like, this is amazing, that would be amazing if, we would love to do something like that. So I would start with them. Outside of that, then I would, I don't know, like that's kind of what I hear, like where to start, where to go, other than reaching out.
You know what I hear? So you know what I hear? So what we're doing right now, this is why we're doing it, is like, where does the uncertainty lie? To me, it's like, that's your greatest area of uncertainty right now, of the stuff we talked about, because you seem to know these other things, but like friends is not a acquisition channel, right? Okay, well, let's skip that for now. What about your setup is like your secret sauce, your unfair advantage that nobody has?
Being both game industry and in architecture, contractor business.
Okay, why?
Having knowledge of the technology and the methods of the game industry.
Okay.
It's not something that most people in architecture and contracting have.
Okay.
Or know about.
Cool.
But it is growing, so that's why it's a kind of a time bomb on this.
Okay.
I'm seeing more and more people use like Unreal and Unity for walkthroughs and visualizations. So,
Okay.
but I don't think I've not seen much as of research I could do, nothing like this.
Okay. So you have a background in the gaming industry. That's your space. Okay, cool. Okay. Let's talk about costs. What are your fixed and variable costs?
Okay. This costs, licenses, equipment.
Licenses for what?
Like Max, Unity.
So software?
Yeah, software licenses.
Okay.
Equipment costs, computers.
Okay.
Servers, lots of server space, and what else?
What's a variable cost?
Salaries.
Okay.
People that would need help working with me, which would be see a couple of programmers back end, front end.
Are those going to be variable or are those going to be fixed? If they're
I guess those are fixed.
full, are you planning to do full time or contract labor? Okay, so those would be fixed. So each, like I heard you say that each home you do, you got to do something custom, right? So these are somehow going to be like partially generated from the blueprints, and then you're going to have to do something on top of that for each one, right?
Right.
So those are salaried employees performing that work? Okay. All right. Is there going to be any advertising costs?
Again, initially, that's part of my uncertainty, not knowing
Okay.
where to advertise, what to advertise with.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have absolutely no idea how to get this out.
Okay, that's fine. This is why we're doing this. And then how are you going to make money?
Through my contract, so doing hosting. So it's two ways. But two ways was basically we host it, and they pay a monthly fee to access the server side for the hosting.
Okay.
We just provide them with a link to the website, or actual licensing costs. So we have a license cost where they buy the license and then they can host it on their own.
Right. So monthly subscription to these guys to be able to offer a portal for their customers in to see their works, basically. Okay. Gotcha.
So and then And then again, provided I get the salaries, I get the staff, I can provide the services that I can provide also that were along the lines of, integration, helping with integration, helping with come up with ideas on how to use it. So consulting.
So charging these guys to integrate it like in their website or something? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Part of it means that it's, again, how these deals work out and how I set them up. Still, that's also in the cloud of uncertainty.
Okay.
But matter of fact, I'll tell you what, wrote it all out too. So, give me one second. Yeah, so as I said, we also provide the service of creating 3D assets for them. So say they have, because we would have to create the assets. So that would be rolled into the monthly subscription, unless this is I can offer that service as a side rather than included.
Okay.
They had the hosted solution and the integrated solution, and then consulting and training.
Okay. Okay, that's good. All right, I'm gonna ask everyone else, what are his key metrics? Like what numbers would he be watching that would be the drivers here that he cares about?
Number of subscribers.
Yep. What else?
People on salary, probably.
Sure, yeah, like overhead. Metrics that he's achieving, like gaining ground or that it's working. What else could we look at?
New building in the city that it's in, new construction, like the amount of new homes being built.
Okay, so you're talking about like outside his business, like the market itself.
How much of the market is he penetrating? How many, or maybe amount of company, amount of contractors? I don't know.
Okay, so like homes in his system versus like, or like density, yeah, like penetration basically. Okay, that's good.
Customer accesses,
Yep.
like when the
So
architects
their
and
customers, yeah.
come in and look at a building.
So maybe like,
On a hosted thing, you ought to be able to measure that.
right, so like monthly active users maybe?
There you go. Well, users is hard to say, but
Okay.
the number of buildings that have been mocked up. Number of different plan sets or whatever you call them.
Yep. Okay. Cool. All right, let's tackle this last one then. Go back to channels. Let's take some guesses. Maybe we can all help them like brainstorm. How might you reach contractors, architects, and developers? Trade shows? Yep. Yep.
So it goes back to advertising.
Yeah, you're gonna have some ad expense. You may have the best friends in the world, but I guarantee they don't know all these guys. What else? Maybe associations, like local. Okay.
Government knows plats, neighborhoods, areas that are registered with the local government,
Mm-hmm.
surveying and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that they have to build
Mm-hmm.
out. Go to the recorder's office, get that data.
Oh, so you're saying like a grassroots, like look at what architects' names are on the things. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good idea. So like
Developers
public
that are on the plats.
records, basically.
Plat development.
Right.
That process. Thank you.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, good idea.
Interesting, that's cool.
Yeah.
I would think that if this was an add-on or an upgrade to an existing CAD system or something.
Love it.
You could go to Autodesk or one of those guys and say, why don't you offer this to your customers for an upsell
Love it. Yeah, like 3D Max, you mentioned that. So I've used that software before, and I know that they've got plugins, and that's a viable channel for you right there if you can somehow tag along the software efforts. Cool. It may, right? Like, it's funny, like, I tested cold calling as a viable channel for our short sale pedia thing, and I think it's hard to make it work, especially now with the do not call list and just the cost of like boiler room telemarketing stuff. I'm not ruling it out here, but it wouldn't be one that I would start with, basically. It's one that you go to optimize and like extend reach once you've already got a beachhead, I think. So, all right, well, this is good. This is actually a really good start. Yeah. We're gonna charge you for this. By the way, guys, this is a really useful tool. Obviously, we wanted to do it interactive here on the whiteboard, but this is what I typically refer people to if they're new to the Lean Canvas. There's a couple different tools out there. Canvanizer is another one that if you already understand how it works, it's maybe a little nicer interface. But this one's good because it's got a kind of a wizard series of questions that steps you through the boxes on how to fill them out, and it's really useful. It was written by the guy who wrote the book, Ash Maierna, I think is his name, and he did the book Running Lean, which is a really good book. Okay, so from all this, where do we think his greatest uncertainty lies from that little exercise we just did? Where? Cost and revenue. Forget the little clouds that I drew. Just try to think about like confidence in terms of what, as we were going through this stuff, talking, and like what it seems like, where the most questions lie. And it may be these two things. I don't know.
I think it's a great idea, and it definitely has a wow factor. Like, people are impressed by technology. Like, if somebody has an iPad, it's cool to see that model. But when you're pitching to your potential customers, above like hiring a photographer, what value is this going to add to them?
Yep. Okay. So let's do this. And by the way, these are, in my opinion, at least for game development, this is not really a game. It has some game mechanics to it, but it's more of an actual software product. But typically, like, I was envisioning that we'd be talking more about like games. And I think these will almost certainly, this will be your greatest area of uncertainty, and then probably followed by these two. So, okay, so let's do this. So we think, say that again, where did you think his greatest uncertainty lies?
Just in, I guess, what the unfair advantage is.
Differentiation.
So what's out there right now that does this? What would I use without using your product?
So there's about 7 or 8 different not customized, what are we called? Design applications. Home Builder has one. I think they're the biggest one. But you start from a blank slate, and like we said, customers have no imagination. So you give me a tool that there is like a box of Legos. You drop a box of Legos, and it's like, okay, now design your best house, and they're like,
yeah.
And they put together a box with a roof, and it's like, here you go, it's my house. I don't know. Then on the opposite end, they're your like you see like picture customizers, or you see like people go out and you'll have a render made of a baseball plan, and then so it's like, all right, now customize this, and you click this, and they'll swap a picture that's taken in the same perspective, right? And you just swap pictures out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really interactive. You're just changing like a 2D image, to make it look like what you want.
Okay.
So that's more customizing than you have one that's just straight building. And
so, but in the context of this, where your customer is one of these people, so now they're offering this capability for them to show virtual walkthroughs of their work to their potential customers.
And to give, so they give that website to their customers.
Yeah.
Let the customers play with it.
Yep.
So the customers, so like they're showing it to the customers. So the salespeople on the floor are showing them, you know, the app, and they're like, oh, that's really. So then they give them the website, and then they get to go and play with it at home.
Right. Okay, so I'm just trying to keep this all straight though. So you've got, this is the public at large who is looking right at the instance that these guys have. They put up a little web page for each of their stuff, and these people are all looking at that. Right. So what do these guys use right now to show them their stuff?
And that's, I mean, for most of them, it's, they have ads, they have commercials, they have.
What are they showing? Is that like password or?
Oh, what are they showing the customers in terms of?
Like what solution do they use in absence of your thing?
Okay. Yeah, so they'll have renderings of the base model. So like I said, they have a catalog of floor plans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll have renderings of that base floor plan.
Uh-huh.
So it's you know that floor plan, but then this is the model that you chose, and so I have a rendering of that, and it looks all nice, but it doesn't have their customizations on it. So what they do is they have other catalogs with images of other contractors, like other manufacturers' work. So, oh yeah, you wanted that garage, or here's an image of that garage on this model, and here's that tile on this model, and here's this brick veneer on this model. So you're getting images to place next to a rendering that
Okay.
you have.
So I guess immediately my question would be is, if there's no solution for this, why is that? Is what they have right now adequate to where they're well served enough and they just don't care, or is what you're proposing truly like compelling enough where they would buy it if it existed? To me, that's like at the crux of all this. That's kind of the big question that we need to find out.
I would do more research on it, because I only have a belief.
I think, you know, an architect that I know uses Google SketchUp
Yeah.
to create whole houses and then play with them from there.
Yep.
And then I know I heard a talk from a pool construction company, swimming pool construction company, and they've got a custom package. I don't know, custom. They have a package that is pretty unbelievable in terms of creating a pool, imaging a pool right there.
You know
in
the
3D,
name of that
you can
company?
walk around it, you can go under it, you go in the water.
Uh-huh.
Do you know the name
Yeah.
of that company?
I could get it. I don't know it offhand, but I can find it.
Okay, well just in the interest of keeping this moving, so there's a lot of questions that you can see that will emerge from this. So our task, if we're in your was it Kent? Ken or Kent?
Ken.
Ken. Okay, Ken. So his task is to prioritize what are the most deal killer questions that he needs to solve, and order them in terms of what is, if this doesn't work, this whole thing is a showstopper, right? So let's put that question at the top. To me, it sounds like there's not quite adequate research done on what the alternative solutions are. And so I would go really put myself in the position of one of these people trying to solve this problem. And you need to validate whether they even have this problem, and if they do, what are they currently using, and how is it deficient? So the process here that we step through is, where does the greatest uncertainty lie? And let's just say that that's it. Like, is this really even a problem for these guys? So if that's the uncertainty, what hypotheses can we make around this? And this is the key, is like, you can't leave these things open-ended. Like where people get spun out here is in, they never frame things in terms of something that's testable. And the way that we make progress towards this whole idea of like the unit is validated learning is turning all of this like open-ended stuff into, I believe, or I'm theorizing that XYZ is the case. Let's go test that. So an example in this situation is, let's just pick one of these segments, because having three is almost too hard. So who do you think we can get to easiest? Contractors? Okay. So we're only worried about this, and our hypothesis is that right now they're not adequately served by whatever the existing solutions are out there. And so we're thinking that they wish they could give a more realistic 3D walkthrough, is what it sounds like, right? So how might we go validate that theory?
Meaning convince them that this is what they need.
No, not convince them. We're not trying to sell anything yet. right? Right? So we are trying to prove or disprove the statement that contractors are not adequately served by their current rendering solutions for showing their houses to potential customers.
Okay, I get the question.
Right?
Okay.
So frame that in terms of a hypothesis and write it down. And then now the next step is, if that is our hypothesis, what is the data that we need to collect to validate or invalidate that hypothesis? And what's the strongest data? Like, we can get surveys and focus groups and that type of stuff, right? But what's the strongest data here?
Be from what the contractors themselves want, right?
And what's the means by which they could express that and you would know for a fact that they want it?
I don't know.
What's even stronger? Yeah, when they do this. Oh yeah, yeah, here you go, I want that, right? Like when they give you money, that's a really strong indicator. So I would argue, what's an experiment you could do to this group of people that would test this hypothesis we just came up with? We're gonna back our way, like you see what we're doing here, we're backing our way into what this experiment is. So this is the next question, what is that experiment? And I'll just suggest one. Could we potentially, could you make some sales collateral for this proposed solution that you have, as if it existed today? Could you do like a one-page brochure for it?
Yep.
And then could you get in front of 10 of these people locally here?
I have one, so you're talking about just in,
No, just
yeah.
just a handful of them, one at a time, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could get in front of 10 of these guys with a piece of sales brochure that for all they know is a real product, right? They don't have to know that it's fictitious at this point.
Okay.
And could you potentially get them to have a conversation with them, treat it like a sales pitch, and at the end of that even ask for a check? It's uncomfortable because it doesn't exist, right? But could you go through that process? If I didn't know any of this and I'm a contractor and you came to me with a sales brochure and you got a meeting, we sat down and you would step me through this and you asked me about,
They would want to at least see it in action.
a demo?
And that's where.
Could you make a rendering? Could you do a not even an interactive one, but like a QuickTime movie or something of an example of walking through plans with your game mechanics? Like, you could?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just,
do that.
Just do the demo. So it's not interactive, just a demo of what it would look
Just a
like.
demo of what it would look like.
Okay.
Or even fake it out. Like, for all they know, it's interactive and you're guiding them through there, right? Like, so make it look like you're steering the little guy through the corridor,
Okay.
but it's not. It's a movie that, just like, what's the simplest thing you can do, basically, to get this data?
Okay.
And at the end of that, if they're getting their wallet out, then that's product market fit. If 7 out of those 10 guys are doing that, then that's product market fit.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, it does. So again, what happens? I guess instead, what happens on the other end of that, where it is successful, they're ready to pay. Like, okay, we want this now. How long?
This is what you do. You say, you know what? We're so happy, so glad for your time and that you've expressed interest in this. This product is in development and we are collecting data right now on what people want because we want to make sure that we deliver exactly what is going to satisfy their needs. And so would it be okay if I get your information and contact you when this is ready?
Okay.
Or if you're even bolder than that, you say, would you mind putting half down as a pre-order on this product and pay the remainder when we deliver it, 6 months from now, 4 months from now?
Get a 25% discount
Yes,
on the final price.
exactly.
I want to say, this is often also very common with games, right? I mean, when you're pitching a game, you kind of have to have something to show, more or less, and if not, you kind of have to go through the same process. And so think of it that way. I mean, if you try to, especially if you're not talking to a publisher, right? I mean, publishers will get a bit more, but
when you think about, we're so in tunnel vision because it's like for all intents and purposes, that's Kickstarter. You need to have the prototype. If you don't have gameplay, if you don't have all that up there, and that's all it is. But I'm not thinking that way in terms of face to face with these contractors.
There's a slide. I don't know if it's the next one. All right, now go run these experiments, rinse and repeat. Okay, I'm not going to go there yet. Early on, qualitative before quantitative, and write that down. Like these discussions are going to be so formative for you in terms of what you think they need. You're going to talk to these 10 people, and at the end of those 10 conversations, you're going to like be, oh my God, I can't believe I was thinking they wanted that when they really want is this. So, and what's neat about this is you haven't done any programming, you haven't spent your money on your ads and all your other stuff. It's like you're just learning right now, and you're quickly iterating and now like adapting, like, they're not going to be willing to pay a monthly subscription for this. But you know what? Maybe they're willing to pay a commission on deals that this sells them. So it's a totally different model, right? And so things start to just shuffle around on the board, and you start to X out stuff and write in new stuff. And as this thing adapts, you're going to see it evolve over time. That's what I'm talking about, your iterative report card on your understanding. Is there any questions so far on what we talked about? Okay. How are we doing time-wise? Do we want to take a break or keep going?
Still okay to keep going?
Keep going? Okay. Okay. I was just going to give you guys like a little example. This is a music startup that I worked on. I came in basically once it had been running for a year. Local guy, really smart developer, had built, think of it like the equivalent of Google Docs for audio. It was actually in the Kaufman Fast Track class that I met him. But he had developed this crazy software that allowed a musician to go in, lay down an audio track, and then send an email, and someone else could go like put the drums in, and then they'd send it to a third person who would record the vocals. So he had this thing, it was called Audio Orchard at the time. We later rebranded as Scratch Audio. What we didn't know, and when I parachuted into this, he didn't have a business model in mind. It was really, he was coming at it from the angle of like just really smart software developer guy, built something cool. But then we were trying to figure out like, so how do we charge for this thing? How do we make money with it? Our thinking was, we came to these idea of various caps on plans, and could we have a free program and then upgrade people to the various levels, and we'd hide certain features and whatnot. But we basically had all these speculative ideas. We didn't know what people would be willing to pay for. And this is what we did. Rather than go out and survey people, because we all know that there's like some survey biases, and people will tell you, oh yeah, I'd pay for that, but would they really? So what we did was pretty clever. We let people use the tool for free. When they went to save their song, we told them to create an account. And as the second step of the account creation, so we grabbed their email, grabbed their name, and then the next page that they got to once they submitted that form was what appeared to be a sign-up page with these plans. And we were basically like multivariate testing, like changing aspects, changing the caps, changing the pricing, changing all these different variables over time, controlling for one variable at a time. But we got to the point where this was the thing that had the highest number of clicks, and we had, we got the breakdown of exactly how many signups. At the time, people thought they were about to pay $29 per month when they clicked this button. And granted, they didn't give us a credit card, because on the next page we said, hey, you know what, we're actually not charging it. It's actually free right now. We're just collecting data. But the point is, we gathered the click data on what plans they were willing to pay for and what features mattered to them. And that then informed what we went and built from there. Because all this stuff didn't exist. We didn't have real-time collaborative edit. We didn't have licensing and privacy controls, analytics and versioning. We thought it'd be cool to add basically like the same thing in Google Docs, where you could roll back a song to a prior state. So all this stuff didn't yet exist, but this experiment allowed us to empirically gather data on what people truly wanted, not by asking them, but by actually seeing who is ready to plunk down money for it. Yeah.
Okay, did you see if anyone got upset by model? Like not technically why, not really being upfront until they kind of clicked those ones?
I think we had one complaint out of the 200 or so responses that we got. We had one person that was like, oh, this is bullshit. I thought I was signing up for this. And it's like, well, you know what? You didn't pay us anything, so sorry. You get what you pay for. Yeah, no. Well, and this is like, people get so spun out. I know like there's this whole controversy about like Amazon A/B price tested, right? So they're charging two different prices for the same item, and they're testing the elasticity of it, and that to me is kind of unethical, right? Because you're selling the same thing, but you're charging two people different prices for it. Okay, I can see the argument. What's cool about this is this is not, you're not charging different prices. You can do this on anything and just give people a windfall. Some people are paying exactly what they thought, and some people are getting it for free who thought they were going to be paying $30. But granted, you're not giving some of these features yet, but you know what? Like your early stages, you can explain away anything, in my opinion. You just say, hey, look, we're developing it. We're trying to get validated data so we build the right thing. So, yeah, I know, exactly, right? Oversell. Okay. Oh, and this is the actual data from one of the experiments we did. You can see the breakdown here. It shows you of the free plan, the Hobbyist, Pro, Ultimate. I mean, and this was astounding to us. It was almost an even split across in terms of the number of people. So 275 clicked on the free, 10 on the next one up, 12 on the middle one, and 11 on the Ultimate, the $99 a month plan, which was pretty cool. And then this tool, this is actually based on a tool called Kissmetrics. Another neat byproduct of this is we could actually test, we could slice and dice the data across ad channels. So whether we were running Google ads or Facebook ads or StumbleUpon or what the actual ad campaign was that was bringing the people, we could see what ads were working. And so like in your case, you can go out and you can learn a lot about this if you were to do something similar, right? And you put up a fictitious landing page for this product that doesn't yet exist, and then you start running some Google ads to these different segments, and you start testing the messaging to them, you can do the exact same kind of experimentation that we did here and get at this very same data before you ever build the product.
Just with the science and analytics data.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so like I said, qualitative over quantitative early on. I am an introvert, as counter as that may seem, because I'm up here talking to you guys, but I'm not like, I'm not comfortable like walking into a situation and just asking a stranger for feedback on my app. But this is a really clever technique that I've heard. It was actually blogged about recently. I forget who did it. But basically, if you have trouble just initiating a conversation with people, go into a Starbucks. Like it wouldn't work in your case because you have a very specific set. But if you just have like a consumer grade application that you're trying to, something to the average Joe, sit down in a Starbucks or a coffee shop with a sign that says, hey, look, I'll buy your coffee if you spend 5 minutes with me, give me some input on this app that I'm building. Or wherever that may be. Go to your an architectural lunch cafeteria somewhere, or go to a contractor site, offer to buy them a hot dog if they'll give you some feedback on it, right? Like the point is, it's like this data that you're gonna get is so much more valuable than the $5 hot dog that you're gonna pay to have that 10 minutes with someone to get that information. And you're gonna also, you don't know what you don't know right now, and you don't know what to ask to figure it out. And so these conversations will lead you there eventually. So I threw this slide in again just because I'm so adamant. I hope you guys will at least go check out the Steve Blank Udacity course. It's free online. And before we break on the next section, this is a really interesting story, not from a game development company, but they make iPhone musical apps. This company, Smule, or Smule, I don't know how you pronounce it, but they started out, they made that little, if you remember the lighter app, the one where you could take your iPhone and flick it open like a Zippo lighter. And it's a super interesting article. This is linked to it. If you get the slides, you can click through and read it. But they totally internalized these concepts of customer development and lean. And it just talks about how they used them. They did the T-Pain app on iPhone that was like super bajillion downloads. They also did the ocarina, little blowing flute thing, and then they made a magic fiddle thing so you can play your iPhone like a fiddle. But super interesting company, and like how they use the data and like everything. They track everything, and they rely upon this kind of analytics and empirical data to determine their decision making. So anyways, I don't know if we want to take a break or we want to just power through. What do you guys want to do? We can keep going or take a break, or?
I just want to throw out a comment, and I don't want to step on what you're doing here at all, but we're running a training program starting in the fall that is based on business model canvas, the lean startup, and all of that. It's free, and it's in Mason. And so it starts September 16th, and it's 3 hours once a week for 10 weeks. We go through the Steve Blank Udacity course, and work on the customer discovery, customer validation cycle, and the business model canvas for the companies. Ben went through it last year.
Yep. That's where Joseph and I met. That's how we started the collab.
So it's fun, interesting, a way to really, put your business into high gear.
How do we find out more?
Cool. And I'll actually just give my endorsement. So I went through 2 semesters of the, is it the Kaufman program?
No,
or is it
built our own now.
built your own? Okay, cool.
Around Steve Blank.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. And you can come back. It's free.
Are you doing it with Ed and Francine, or are you on your own? Is it with Ed and Francine, or are you?
Yes,
yeah.
with
Okay.
Francine.
Okay, cool.
Francine and I do it. Francine Hardaway, some of you may know her. She and I put the program on. She kind of does the first half of each evening, and I do the second half.
Cool.
And then in between sessions, you watch the Udacity program. It's about 5.5 hours all together, but you watch it about 30 minutes a week, and then we talk about it, and we talk about your business, and we talk about your business in the context of it, and
Cool.
It's good to hear other people. That was always a big thing. It's good to hear other people and where they're coming from and how
Yeah.
different businesses can still go through the same thing, and then you actually start to think differently about your business and get all those different perspectives.
That's, to me, like, so we went through the Fast Track Kaufman Foundation program when they ran it, and that was probably more valuable than the content of the class itself, was being in the same room with other people that were going through it themselves, and like hearing their questions and listening to their challenges, and then having that kind of impact how you thought about your own thing.
I thought Francine was the most exciting part of the day that we attended.
Yeah.
We did it from like 9 in the morning till
right. It runs 9 to 10. This one's going to be 5:30 to 8:30 at night. So, but there's an Eventbrite sign up.
Cool. Yep.
And I'll just put you on the list if you send me your email address, and I'll put you on the list. And we'll start publicizing it soon.
Cool. All right, well, so, I mean, this last part takes about 20, 25 minutes. Do we just want to keep going? Let's just keep going. All right. Yeah. All right. Okay, so all the stuff that we just talked about was that side of it, right? It was all about how do we achieve product market fit. Everything that we're going to talk about now is assuming that we've just nailed it. We've built exactly, like, we've got 10 out of 10 contractors that we met with. They've all said, man, I love this. When can I buy it? Let me know when it's ready. Here's my checkbook, and I'm pre-ordering it. All right, so let's talk about, now that we've achieved product market fit, what do we do? You guys should be building, I would argue right now, even before you have the product, you should be building a list. And how you do that is kind of dependent on everyone's scenario, but there's no reason you shouldn't be collecting emails right now from prospective users of your game or your software. I'm a little bit biased. I'm a certified Infusionsoft consultant, so I've tried a bunch of different stuff, and I've found this to be the most powerful system to work with. They happen to be a local company, but I mean, you can get away with using a free MailChimp account. I think it's free up to like 2,500 users. So there's no reason everyone here shouldn't be at least collecting emails in some way that they can email their base of people. So I included this slide, like the Verizon guy, it's the network. It really is about how you, not just what you, like the list that you develop, but like your relationship with that and your ability to get value out of it. I just threw this on here. Like, as of yesterday, I have 978 LinkedIn connections. For whatever that's worth, those aren't just random people that I've spammed to connect with. These are people that like I've actually done business with and that could vouch for me and take a phone call and connect me to someone that they know. So I've actually gotten a lot of value out of LinkedIn in terms of a tool to get to other people. And so I would definitely encourage you not just to build a list, but to really like connect with people that you trust and use your network. All right, so let's think, like, taking his example of what we talked about, what's some stuff that he could do now? We picked one scenario there where he's developed some sales collateral, he's gone, had a few meetings with these people. The landing page, I think, would be a fantastic idea for you. You should definitely throw together a site if you don't already have one, and just start advertising this stuff and collecting an email. What else could he do, though? I mean, these are just some other ideas that I came up with, but what else? What are some other list building strategies for everyone in this room?
We talk about building a website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least, at the very least, a landing page, something simple that communicates the value. Anyone here have a blog? Or
Well, I was talking about this before, like starting a blog, and it was like, if I create a blog, that's not even necessarily talking about that, but addressing from, like, you know, I guess the thing, like, when talk to these guys, I get what their concerns are, and see what their needs are, and I start writing blogs that address that, you know, not directly talking anything about my application,
Yeah.
but just start establishing myself as a knowledgeable person in those issues. Then, you know, it's like, and it's like, I do this with consistency, and then, yeah, so now I'm tied, then when I get tied to my application, there's that background that I've created for myself.
Yep.
So actually, I got some good advice on that, so that's what started doing. I've already, like I said, just purchased the site, got blog software, so now I'm just trying to figure out what I want to write.
Yeah, what I would say, just anything that that gives you like credibility, authority, access to these people, maybe even like a Google Hangout that you could do on a recurring basis that's saying, you know, tools for contractors marketing their business. And don't even necessarily make it about your own thing. Research, like, what would you use if you're in their position? And just start to become an authority in that space. And people, you know, Google Plus is really tightly integrated now with Google Hangouts. And you'll just get authorship and credibility and people plus wanting your stuff in that space. I mean, these are just some other ideas. Obviously, blog is a very simple thing to do at this point. There's really no reason, if you're doing any game or venture here, that you probably want to have your own blog. Giving people, like, playing around with the VIP access to stuff, I think is powerful. You know, giving these early contractors some type of elevated precedence over everyone else, whether it's a discount or whether it's like extra features or whatever it is. But like VIP access is a good thing to play with. You could do, you know, podcast interviews with other, in your case, like, what are, I don't know, people in the same space, other marketing tools for contractors. But so you start, though, with the end in mind, like, who are you trying to get to, and then what are the appealing things that we could make that would help us gain credibility and access. This is just like a random idea, but what about saying, you know, for the first 60 days that we're on sale, proceeds of this thing are they're just gonna go to charity, and it's a charity of your choice, or it's a charity we select, or whatever. But some kind of incentive where now that charity that you're working with, like the United Way now, is promoting to their list, hey guys, like, figure out who are some, and that's probably a bad example because there's not like a, what's that? Yeah, but like the point is, like, figure out what is a channel that already exists that has a ton of viewership, and how do you incent them to promote you to their audience. Contests are a pretty obvious thing. You can get sponsors to actually donate the prizes, so you're not out of pocket here. Likely giving your own software as the prize isn't going to be that appealing on day one, but you know, figure out some related sponsors that might be interesting. I mean, I was just brainstorming here along the lines of gaming stuff, but like, can you give away a subscription, but do some type of referral campaign where, hey, tell 5 friends about this and get them to create a trial account, and we'll hook you up with a year subscription to a magazine, or in your case, maybe it's, you know, Contractor's Digest, or I don't know what that is, but so you get the point. There's just different strategies we can use to build a list.
And then when you write your blog, then you can link it on Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and LinkedIn and all that, which content is king. So if you have really good content, then people should then sign up for your Twitter account, sign up, you know, follow you on Twitter, and connect with you on LinkedIn and all that stuff. We had somebody come through our training finally launched this thing, she's now got an audience of 20,000 people to say, we're on, we're here, it's
Yep.
on.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the difference between launching to an empty room on day one or launching to 20,000 people who already want to hear about your stuff. So opted in to hear from you specifically. Yeah. Okay. So now that we've got this list, like, I guess it goes without saying, but never abuse it. Never, you know, it took you a long time to build that list. Don't incinerate it by, you know, over sending them stuff or selling it or doing anything that abuses it. I always try to exceed what their original expectation was. If they opted into, I don't know what they thought they were getting from you. Maybe they thought they were getting a sneak peek. Maybe give them something that they hadn't expected. Give them extra access, or you know, you got to be creative here on what you can do to exceed their expectations. But when they get that email, you want them to be like floored by like, oh my gosh, I wasn't even expecting this. I'm going to go tell 5 people about it. Don't be afraid to show like a more human, personal side here. Like, what inspired you to go down this path? Like, why are you doing this business?
I've always liked, personally, I've always liked doing visualizations. I like being able to see, put my hands on, and play with what it is that I'm going to be investing in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's something as a home buyer they can relate to that. So, and custom home buyers have never had that. So.
Have you ever done this for a home? Have you like actually taken a blueprint and actually tried to do this for a real house?
I used to do visualizations, architecture visualizations for commercial buildings, schools, other facilities. Only did it for a home for a friend, not for money.
But you've done it for other buildings before. Is there any stories that you can use? Like, what was the impact of your work on that?
They loved it because they again were able to see and understand what the choices they made and what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for my friends that did, they were overwhelmed by all the catalog images, and it's just like they couldn't put it together. It's like, okay, I see the images, I see the building, I see the rendering, but I can't see what it all looks like coming together, like
Yeah.
puzzle pieces. And so it's a puzzle mastering. It's like, let's take all these pieces and put them together.
So I think it would be really powerful if there's any way you could track down any of those people who would go on camera and say that very thing and say, hey, look, we didn't even know we were getting into this school facility, but we really didn't know what we were getting into. And man, this thing was so awesome. It let us, purchase with confidence or whatever it was. Like, they're going to say something on camera that's the kind of stuff you want to capture, like the human side and the stories and people like sharing their actual reaction to what your stuff did for them. If you can get that, that's worth its weight in gold right there. We talked about like exclusive VIP privileges. Like, treat your list like, give them, just slather stuff on them. If you can get them discounts and get them access to stuff they wouldn't otherwise, that's how lists grow on their own and people start forwarding it and telling their friends about it. This is a rule that I learned like firsthand through Jumpbox, and I've since seen other stories validate it, but definitely the idea is to increase your prices over time. If you can, if it'll support it, you want to always kind of be driving up, but never diss the people early on that took a chance on you. So always grandfather. And so things like with a list, if you started out at X price and then you launch and now it's suddenly up here, make sure that you extend, or at least if you're going to cut off at a certain point, that they know about it and that they have every opportunity to take advantage of that early discount. Never just jack it up and say, tough luck, everyone's got to pay that higher price now. And this isn't hard to do now. A lot of the systems like Chargeify and Recurly and CheddarGetter and some of these other subscription billing services make this actually really easy to do. All right, well, so here's a shameless self-promo. I'm writing an ebook right now called Business Autopilot on our site. Guess what? It's not done yet, but I'm definitely doing a landing page that allows people to download the ebook. So this type of thing, this is what we help people figure out. If you guys need help with this, talk to me afterwards. This is something that I'll just briefly explain. This is like a whole talk unto itself, so we're not going to be able to dig into it in too much detail. But once you have a list, there's something called lifecycle marketing, which is it's like kind of what Infusionsoft is the tool that enables this. But lifecycle marketing is the science of moving people from the point at which they're just random strangers that don't know about you to how do you get them to your website? How do you capture some of their contact info so you've intrigued them and they're willing to trade something to hear more from you? Through the process of how you earn their trust and respect over time to the point at which now they're a customer of yours and you're now just blowing them away with your service and how awesome customer service you have, to the point where they want to buy more stuff or higher plans or just upsell, cross-sell, to the point at which they're now telling all their friends about you because you're the greatest thing ever and they love what you do and they can't help but refer you on because why wouldn't they? They're doing their friends a service to tell you about it. So the process by which you systematically move people through this flow is called lifecycle marketing. Marketing automation is the tool by which you do this in a systematized way. So like that Infusionsoft tool, this is just an example campaign built in it. But if we're collecting a list from various sources, so our website's generating some leads, like organic search traffic is coming in, and we've got like a newspaper article or something. This all feeds to a sleep assessment in this case. And there's just like a sequence of stuff that happens here. Basically, the point is there's tools now where MailChimp is cool. It's an autoresponder thing. It's a way to get people into your system and then like do newsletter blasts. This type of stuff, you can actually start to do adaptive messaging where you're collecting emails and you're triaging people based on what you learn about them. And you're now starting to send really hyper-targeted messages to everyone in your system. And it spans not just email, but like postcards, text messages, you name it, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. Send them through webinars, send them to different events and whatnot. And it's how you flow people through this that is the tools you use to move them through this cycle over time. Yeah.
Is this something that's accessible to everybody? I mean, because when you start to see this, you see how big it is and what you do and all that.
Yeah.
This is kind of out of my reach.
Yeah.
How could I take advantage of something like this? Because it sounds like it would really push you right to the next level, but how do you get there?
I would argue at this stage, like, I don't think anyone's there yet in here. Like, it's certainly useful, regardless of where you're at. But there's bigger fish to fry early on. Like you're definitely way more important that you get your product market fit right before you even worry about this type of stuff. I mean, no argument though that having a list, the more you know about that list, the more valuable it is. And the more you can adapt your messaging as you learn things, as these people start to self-identify as, hey, I'm a contractor, hey, I'm an architect, hey, I'm a developer, like immediately your messaging to each one of those groups changes, right? And the vocabulary is different. Everything is different about it. So just being able to kind of like develop this decision tree of how you path people down different messaging pathways is a huge thing. I would say early on, don't worry about it. Use MailChimp. Use any tool that's out there to at least collect the emails and then start to have some dialogue with them. But at the point at which you're leaving money on the table by not doing this segmentation, then consider selling. And it's probably going to be at the point where you have revenue, where that makes sense.
Brandon, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So if we start with something like the MailChimp, which is basically build a simple list,
Yep.
How hard is it to transition into Infusionsoft? I guess specifically, since you know quite a bit about it.
Yeah, it's not hard at all. MailChimp, you can do a lot with MailChimp. It has the concept of different lists, so you can approximate some of this stuff by basically just having different lists in MailChimp and moving people through them. So you might have a contractor, architect, and developers list, but everyone starts out as general inquiry. And then once you learn about them, then you move them to that other list. It's a little manual at first, but at least you're doing it, and it's getting you some of that features. In terms of how hard is it to move, not hard. And you can export out of MailChimp, you get a CSV file, you import that all into Infusionsoft. And it's got the concept of fields, so everyone, you tag them as a certain kind of person, and then when you import them into Infusionsoft, you map that field to another one. And I could show you even like how that all works. Yeah.
Mailgun with contact.io.
Okay.
Mailgun does all my API emails and everything.
Okay.
And then my queries for what my content, timing is all done out of contact.
Okay.
So I'm real close, but it's real low level.
I'm not familiar with either of those systems, but it sounds like, I mean, you're ahead of the game in terms of you're already,
So,
yeah.
so that's why I'm Mailgun. I was using MailChimp,
Uh-huh.
but with facility, I was doing contact list and all that, changing the time, the content, like you said, the list.
Yep.
But over in Contact.io, it was real easy,
Cool.
especially on the time.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check out those systems. I'm curious what they do.
Yeah, they're linked together real well.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions on this stuff? Okay. All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about is this idea of how do you recycle stuff? And I mean, Brian's familiar with this concept from 37 Signals, I know, sawdust. There's always like spin-off value and how do you repurpose content that you've done, whatnot. Here's just an example. Like I'm talking to you guys tonight and this is being recorded. You can bet that I'm gonna take that recording and throw it up on my blog for Grid 7. You know, it'll be up there. I use a transcription service. So the YouTube video, I can feed through this thing. It's called SpeechPad. And they actually go out for like $1 a minute. They'll transcribe it and they'll give me a full transcription, which then that goes into the blog post and there's some SEO fodder right there, right? So there's some link juice and whatnot. I'll also then obviously push it out to the 3 different, you know, the usual suspects for the social media channels, which then it gets, on all these, it gets kind of passed around. I'll take these slides and I'll put them up on SlideShare. Like I've done a couple talks before. I think I've got about 1,000 views on SlideShare, but that's just something that's always working in the background in terms of content that I've already done that's out there working for me. If I want to get crazy down the road, there's something called Stealth Seminar where I can actually set it up so it looks like, you know, using Infusionsoft, when new people come to my site, I can say, hey, you know, I'm doing a webinar this Wednesday, you ought to come join and sign them up for that. And then this webinar, for all they know, is being broadcast live every Wednesday. And from them, it's just like, oh, wow, this is great. And then you got like secondary sources that, you know, I run the Lean Startup Circle for Phoenix. So I could certainly repurpose this there, post it to that group and say, hey, this is the talk I did. It'll get circulated there. By virtue of being there, it'll get passed on to the federation, Lean Startup Circle, like the global federation. Infusionsoft invited me to do a post on their blog, which is the Big Ideas blog, and they were interested in the lean concept. So it's something that I could use there. And then of course, like if you guys wanted to put it up on your blog, there's yet another outlet for this stuff. So you can see it starts to develop this web where this one talk, just a group of 10 people here, suddenly has all this other like secondary and tertiary reach, right? And so always be in that mindset of like, okay, we're doing this now, like we're meeting with these contractors. What is the spin-off value of that? What else should we be collecting? How else can this be repurposed? And just get in that mindset of there's like value being generated in all these different ways that you're not thinking about right now. So anyways, that's pretty much all I got. I would say if you get anything out of this, the Steve Blank Udacity course, I really hope you guys will check that out. And then here's 3 Twitter accounts. If you guys use Twitter, I would follow all 3 of these guys. This is, I don't know, does anyone know this guy? Patrick McKenzie, super bright guy. He does something called Calamazeus software, but he's a solopreneur. He made a whole business out of making bingo cards for teachers. And he blogs just, he's very prolific and shares everything that he learns, and he's huge into A/B testing and all that stuff. He's a good guy to follow. Rob Walling, I've known for a while, but he runs the MicroConf. It's a conference every year, really good conference for solopreneurs. And then Kiss Metrics, in terms of like an account, like if I was gonna follow one account on Twitter, I swear I probably favorite like 3 tweets by them a day because their articles are just amazing. It's best content in terms of like a single source that I've ever found. And then I've also curated a bunch of this stuff, like the ones that I found really valuable on our own site. There's a little link at the bottom that goes to our wiki, and they're all there. And then all these slides link to the places that are linked here. So if you want them, I'll just give them to you and you can disseminate them. So anyways, that's all I got. If you guys got any questions. All right, cool. Thanks.
Any questions, anybody? Yeah?
Yep.
go at something, right?
Yep.
Is based off of your own individual perspective without having met the market. And I think there's a little bit of disconnect with him possibly here. You get some value.
So in terms of like the questions that we ask to get at some of these,
What? Yeah, I just, like there's that missing step, right, of like doing customer development. I know we kind of like talked about that going out and talking to the customers directly. But the focus of why you're going to have a lot of these gaps is because it's in your mind. It's because you haven't talked to the customers, right? I don't know, I've just seen like a big disconnect with like his potential understanding getting the most value out of it.
well, so yeah, so there's a lot of like all those clouds that we have up here start to dissipate once the more of these conversations that we have. This just becomes very crystal clear to the point where there's not even going to be, there's going to be like a third as much stuff on it, but it's all going to be like bolded. You know this for a fact, or with like 90% confidence, you know that your revenue model is a monthly subscription, or it's not a monthly subscription.
But, and you're saying that
Well, yeah, I was just kind of picking up on potentially that you weren't exactly like really like fully picking up on the customer development phase of this potentially. I just wanted to maybe drive that home again for his benefit.
which is the customer development part is getting out there and talking to those customers, getting FaceTime,
Yeah,
and asking those
In a
questions,
way-
those
And
answers.
treating it like a true experiment. So instead of going
Yeah.
in there and trying to prove that you're right, you're not trying to, you're just going in there to really run an experiment, and it will be proved or disproved your original like thesis. But that's not it. There's nothing wrong with the failed experiment, right?
Because of the knowledge I get out of that,
Yeah,
run it again.
exactly. And it's saving you from all this wasted effort and wasted energy. So your goal is not to prove the business model canvas. That's your first way to get all those concepts out on paper, right? This is your initial hypothesis. This is what you think the business will look like. And I can guarantee you it's going to look very different when you actually go out there and you start investigating. So you might find out that, that they're completely happy with what they've got right now. And I'm not saying that they will for sure, but that should be a good thing because if there's anybody else here who's done businesses in the past where they just completely fell in love with an idea, right? And that idea was the thing that they were driving with, you end up wasting so much time, money, energy, and you can be spending that somewhere else more effectively, right? So I think the most important thing for entrepreneurs to get is that someone telling you that they're not interested in what you're proposing is not a bad thing at all, right? Because you're a creative guy, you're gonna be able to find another angle. You're gonna be able to find, that little like piece that turns you on to a new business that no one else thought was there potentially.
Right.
The sooner the better. Too.
Sooner
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah, and if nothing more, like the 10 people that you talk to who say, yeah, you know what, I just wouldn't use this, it's not interesting, there may be a different type of contractor. It may be, like pool contractors or
Or maybe
landscapers,
or
yes.
For movies or
Yeah.
Like a lot of developments, target different sectors of the audience. So like there's one contractor I know I would talk to. They target, elderly, elderly communities.
Yep.
Another one would target, young families. Other contractors target. So it's like, their market is different. So.
But things that you like, let's take the example of the elderly community, and I'm just gonna this is probably like way off and a bad stereotype, but like, what if you learn from those conversations that they would love that service, but then their customers are just not online. They don't happen to look at or even know what YouTube or QuickTime or Flash or any of this stuff is. So like the fact that you're asking them to like navigate through a 3D world and they're like, right click what?
So what I was getting at is like Sean talked about before, it's like this concept of build, measure, learn. And I always say that it's the opposite because first you should be going out and doing customer development to know what you should be building. Because you're going to waste a lot of time building the wrong thing right off the bat.
So that's really step one.
I would even argue that there's some potential value with what you're doing. If you have an expertise and you can do a mock-up and you can do a demo of this and it doesn't burn a bunch of calories, then go ahead and do that. So you're going in with the best, because the way that you run an experiment dictates what the results of that experiment are, right? So you want to run the cleanest experiment you can. Really think of yourself as a scientist, right? You want to eliminate as many variables as possible. You don't want to just blindly go into the lab and be mixing chemicals together. You want to know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, right?
Right.
So for a lot of people, there's value of just going and talking to people first before you even start to build anything.
Yeah.
Right? And that, you know,
That's
helps.
more of a fishing expedition at that point because it's like we don't even know we don't know.
Exactly. So,
That's where we're now. So it's like, as you're asking questions, I'm starting to ask more questions that I'm not. And now as I'm pushing, I get different answers to see new questions.
so you want to know, like, what the alternatives are, how much they're paying for those, like, what's the biggest pain, you know, around this. Like, you want to really understand what this customer's pain is so you can help solve it. And don't assume that you necessarily have the right answer, right? Really find out what is bothering them.
Yeah, and what Brian's also saying is don't fall in love with your solution, fall in love with the problem space itself. And just really understanding these guys, walk a mile in their shoes, and have 100 conversations with these people. When you've done that, and you know you've done that well, when your 101st conversation, when you're talking to them and they're like, you're reading my mind. Like, you know exactly what I'm thinking right now. And that means you've done your job. You know, you speak their language, you know what their problems are. When you're in that position, then this all just becomes really clear.
And these people love when you solve their problems too, right? Like, they're going to love that you're there to try to help them. If they truly have a problem, there's nothing to be afraid of because they're just people just like you. They've got a problem. They're going to think that, oh my gosh, this is a guy who's a skill that I don't have that can help solve this big pain in my life. They're going to be so happy that you showed up to have a conversation with them. You know, it's going to be mutually beneficial instead of them doing you a favor. You're both doing each other a favor. And if you don't view it that way, then there's something wrong right there, right? Like, really know that you're coming to the table with some value for the customer, and they're going to really value just that conversation alone.
The way I put it is, in God we trust, everybody else brings data. So the whole idea is to just ask questions. Every answer that they give you is a data.
Cool. All right. Good deal. Well, yeah, we'll stick around as long as you guys want to.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So, thanks everybody for coming. Stay tuned for the next one.